New Brighton Middle School. And Mr. B, do you want to introduce the pledge leader?
Sorry, Ted, I just went live.
Ready.
Yeah, sorry, Ted, I just went live, so it's just going live now on YouTube.
Okay. Oh, okay. So, well, that was a good rehearsal. So we're going to start off with our Pledge of Allegiance. It's going to be led by a student from New Brighton Middle School. And Mr. B, would you like to introduce your student?
It's my pleasure, Mr. Donnelly. So tonight I am bringing from New Brighton Middle School, Cami Montanez. She is our student body chairperson, and you may have already met her earlier on this year when the NBMS Student Council was recognized. She's also the daughter of Corey Montanez, who's our office manager here at New Brighton Middle School. So Cami, the stage is yours.
Just have to unmute.
Yeah, she was talking earlier, so I'm sure she'll be unmuted in a moment.
I like the strategically placed Raiders pendant in the background there. No doubt who they cheer for.
Right.
Okay, there you go. 1 second, sorry.
No worries, Cami.
I know. Please stand. Place your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge
allegiance to
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty
and justice for all.
There we are.
Cami, do you have the mission statement?
Yeah, sorry. Do I just read it, or do I have to say anything? Okay. Staff, students, parents, and the community share the responsibility for each child's success. We are committed to ensuring that each student develops the skills and confidence for lifelong achievement and is prepared to make a positive contribution to our world.
Thank you. Thank you, Cami. Yay. Good job. There you go. In Zoom, my squares keep moving around on me, so I'm almost like a chameleon. You know, can you imagine being a chameleon in a meeting? You can look all around. Thank you very much. And so you go by Cami, but your full name is Camara?
Yeah.
Is that how you pronounce it?
Camara. Yeah.
Montanez. That's a pretty cool name, Camara Montanez.
Thank
I
you.
like that. Well, Cami, I have a little certificate I'm going to read here that was written about you, and it's wonderful. So let me read it. Camara Montanez feels that New Brighton Middle School has been really welcoming and stated that everybody is nice and caring and considerate. She does not have a favorite subject. She likes them all. Camara notes that distance learning has been hard for her and she feels like she gets a lot more assignments. So you get more assignments with distant learning than you do in class, huh? Oh, maybe we should do distance learning longer. No, just kidding. Anyways, she likes to play softball, tennis, and take her 2 dogs for a walk, and plays with her 10-week-old bunny, Mocha. and hang out with her friends. She would like to go to cosmetology school, and she also wanted to be a hairstylist and also thinks of being a kindergarten teacher. She is not sure yet. Well, you have a little while to decide, but that sounds great. Actually, you could do it all too. In fact, when I'm reading this, my dog just came in and said hi to me and got me a little distracted there. So, but you have 2 dogs. How old are they?
My little dog, she's 10. Well, she's turning 10 in later this month. And my other dog, he's a black lab and he's 6 years old.
Oh, was he a big chewer?
No, not really.
Oh, really? You're lucky. I had to duct tape my couch together after my dog went through the puppy stage. And you have a bunny too. Does the bunny and the dogs, they get along?
Yeah, I have him right here. Let me grab him.
Okay. Oh, and you're a Raiders fan too. That's right. Oh, what a cutie.
Aw.
Yeah, he doesn't really like to be held that much, but he likes to explore.
Does he? I bet. Does he play with the dogs too?
Yeah, my dogs don't really mind him. They just kind of play with each other.
That's pretty neat. You got some nice friends there. Board members, do you have any other questions or any questions you'd like to ask before I hog it all? Phil.
What position do you play in baseball?
I really like third base or shortstop.
A hot corner.
The action.
All right, I have a question if I can jump in.
Sure.
And a comment because I love to talk, but I am willing to bet that might be the first time there's been a buddy at a school board meeting, at least in our district. So that's awesome. Thank you very much for sharing. Mocha, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm a fan of like all kinds of mochas, so thank you for that. And then I had a question. You're the student body president or chair, right?
Yeah.
So what is that like doing that with distance learning?
It's a little different than I expected it to be, but it's really nice because everyone's all participating and it's really fun just being in student council. So I'm really happy that I got the chance to be the president.
Well, thank you for doing that. You know, it takes a lot to step up sometimes. And for some people, you know, I'm assuming all your meetings are on Zoom, right? Like that's not always comfortable. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah, Cami, the students are lucky to have your leadership. And I just want to offer, if you want to practice being a kindergarten teacher, I have a kindergartner. More than welcome to teach him a thing or two. I love all of your choices of potential careers, and it's just wonderful to see where things go.
Tammy, I want to thank you for stepping up for being a leader in our school, and I think your choices of career are also amazing. So definitely, whether it's cosmetology or teacher, there are 2 amazing careers.
Okay, thank you. And with that, we're going to move on into our meeting here. And so, Cami, you have a good evening.
Thank you.
Okay, and thank you for coming. Go Raiders.
Thank you, Cami.
I'm going to report out on closed session. Item 2A, which was comprehensive school safety plan part 2, we unanimously approved that. Item 2B, the public employee complaint is we're going to reconvene into closed session when open session ends. Next, is there a motion to adopt the agenda as it stands?
I move.
Okay, Phil first, second.
I'll second, Carolyn.
Carolyn seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? None. Okay. We're gonna, okay, next we have a public hearing. Scott, you want to take it? Like you have any choice anyways.
Yes, sir. Yeah, that was totally rhetorical, wasn't it? So yes, thank you. So annually, the board is asked to review and consider approval of a comprehensive school safety plan. In larger districts, each school site has to do a comprehensive school safety plan. In districts that have an enrollment 2,500 students or lower, they are allowed to submit a single comprehensive school safety plan, excuse me, part 1, which is the public part, which is what is being considered in this setting. And so as part of that process, it needs to be easily accessible by the public so that anybody may weigh in. Hence our public hearing on Comprehensive School Safety Plan Part 1. And, we would see if anybody from the public now would like to comment on that. And I do not have anybody on text, FYI.
Okay.
Nothing in email.
Someone just entered the waiting room. Do you want me to admit them and see if this is what they want to comment on?
Sure. And
Yeah.
might as well be safer than sorry.
Enrique, you just entered the meeting. Did you enter to comment on something publicly?
No, I was just trying to find the regular meeting. I'm sorry. Do I need to get out?
I will send you the YouTube link in a chat. Thanks.
And of course, later in the agenda, this is an action item on the same subject.
Right. So with that, I guess it's safe to say to close the public hearing. So we'll go ahead and close the public hearing on this. Thank you. And then is there a motion to accept the consent agenda as it stands?
I'll make the motion. Oh,
I'll second.
Ty. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, who went first? Who went second?
Amanda's on first, Carolyn's on second, Cammie's on
There we-
third. Just kidding.
There we go. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Okay. Do we have any public communications that on any item that is not on the agenda tonight?
I have nothing on text.
Nothing on email.
Nothing on Zoom.
Okay. Then let's move on to standing reports, and we'll start off with Michelle. I guess.
Good evening, everyone. So the last few weeks, I've had the opportunity to attend both the parent and the staff town halls and be a participant in that. And I believe Scott will probably talk further about that one on his report out. I just wanted to add that I found both town halls very engaging, and having the opportunity on both the staff side and then on our community side from getting the different input was really very rewarding. Also, we had other members here too also attended the LCAP training for our new LCAP template. And so I know Jessica will probably talk more about that later. Again, with all things, change it up, make it different. And so I don't think we've ever had quite an LCAP the same since it started. But this should be pretty interesting. I'm really excited about engaging in our LCAP work with all of our principals. And so they were able to attend the training as well. Also today we met with the fiscal prioritization team, and I know we have 2 board members that attended that, so I'll let them speak to that later. I appreciate everyone's input on that, both membership and board members, and the perspective from our administration. And it was pretty much just a recap of where we are right now with our CARES and ESSER funding. And working on second interim and getting additional purchases, getting ready for our hybrid implementation. And so that's what we've been up to in business.
Thank you. Jessica.
Great, thank you.
So as Michelle said, the staff and parent town halls were, I think, highly attended and highly successful. It really was a privilege to be able to participate in them this time. They were lengthy, but they were really informative. And I think that we were really able to address the concerns and questions of the community. And I really do like the way that our superintendent holds the town halls. They really are, intended to be transparent. And I love being part of that process. So that's been really great. Like Michelle said, all of our administrators attended the LCAP training provided by the County Office of Education this past week. And I think that that's the first time our entire administrative team has attended as a team to really cohesively and intentionally look at the way that the 3-year plan is now designed and what it's intended to do. So we're really looking at different kinds of data and different methodologies in terms of meeting our students and families' needs as we move forward out of distance learning. Our dual language immersion planning team has met twice since our last board meeting. We've discussed the next steps for an opening in our district for the 22-23 school year. So that's been fascinating and really exciting. Our student information system migration team has met again as recently as today to discuss professional development and staff support as we move forward towards the rollover from Illuminate to Infinite Campus. And a couple of those members are on this meet tonight, George and Corey. It's a really collaborative team, and I'm really excited about the support that we're going to be able to provide our staff and families when we migrate our student information systems. Our new Brighton English Learner Individualized Learning Plan pilot team has also met again to finalize the ILP plan template. The staff and student family partner team is now being established. And then we're going to be meeting again tomorrow to work on kind of a consistent and supportive new Brighton process and messaging. So that's really exciting to work on individualized learning plans for our English learners as we move forward. And then just kind of to give an overview of what we've been doing in planning for hybrid and a return to school in a hybrid setting. Our elementary and middle school teams have worked really steadily on their planning towards providing an environment that's conducive for students to return, and really looking at the social emotional learning components that will be built into the routines and reestablishing the connections with the students as they enter our campuses again for the first time. So that's been really great to see that those conversations happening and to participate in those. So just a few updates from Ed Services tonight. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jessica. Scott.
I'm mostly going to piggyback on what Michelle and Jessica have already mentioned, so I'll make mine relatively brief. Of course, everything related to COVID-19 and hybrid have been the majority of our focus, and that's being addressed later in the agenda tonight, as is racial justice. So as mentioned, the three items I want to discuss, they really all have a similar theme in my mind, and that is collaboration and a willingness to engage from all stakeholders in the district. And for that, I'm very grateful, because wanting to have a culture in our district of shared leadership, it only works if people step up to the plate and contribute in meaningful ways. And for the dual language immersion, that is one example of how that has taken place. We have an incredible group of folks that from all different aspects of the district that are contributing and having deep conversations about what is the best way to bring that program to our district. And so we're making good progress on that, and had a meeting last week, and we'll continue in March to discuss next steps. The LCAP training that was mentioned, great job by the COE, one, for coordinating it and taking all the new elements of it and making them comprehensible. And just so proud of the team the LCAP's only as good as each leader can walk away and work with their stakeholders at their sites, and that's when it becomes more and more of a meaningful plan. So I'm just really grateful for Jessica's leadership on that, and for our whole administrative team to engage in it. And then for the fiscal prioritization team, as Michelle mentioned, that happened earlier today. And it's just so rewarding to be able to have that setting to just focus on where our district is currently financially. But having folks like Gordon and Corey as union president sit in on that, as well as principal representative and board representative, it just gives us a better chance to make sure that through good times and bad times financially, we're working off of accurate information and not rumors. So I'm just really appreciative for everybody that steps up and participates in those teams and committees. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, CSEA. Corey,
Good
there you
evening.
are.
Here I am. Thank you all for being so kind to my little angel. She was a little nervous, so she did good though.
Oh, we could have chatted with her all night.
Oh,
but
she would chat with you all night, I
All
guarantee.
right.
Just a couple of things. Obviously, the vaccines are the big topic for classified staff, and it's been, the past couple of months in the classified world have been really, really crazy busy for me. But vaccines were good this week, and I think everyone's feeling like we're all pushing in the right direction. And so I'm really thankful for the collaboration between Scott, myself, and Gordon, just always kind of checking in with each other and really just working as a team, and that feels really good. And then the town halls, I attended both the staff and the parent town halls, and I think parents will be happy that the littles are coming back, and I think everyone, wants to see these little kiddos back on campus, obviously as safe as we can make that. So we have to tread a little light, but I think it's going to be good in the end. And then, just the fiscal prioritization team meeting today was good. I always love collaborating with our team, and really, Michelle does a great job of just explaining like where we are, where we're headed. And so it gives us, Gordon and I, the talking points to go back to, our people and spread the word. So that's all that I have.
All right, thank you. Next we have SEA, Gordon.
Yeah, thank you. And definitely want to echo what Corey and Scott have said. Really has been a pleasure working with you guys. It is a pleasure working with you guys. I appreciate very much the collaborative nature of this district. I think that was fully on display today during the fiscal prioritization team, which was really informative meeting, and kind of just getting myself up to speed with a lot of the terms and phrases that you guys probably all know very well, but that are totally new to me. I had no idea what an unduplicated count was. Title I versus Title III. There's a lot there. So just trying to get a better understanding of the finances in the district, and I think that was a really good opportunity. So I appreciate being involved in that. Aside from that, like Corey said, I was also at both of the town halls last week, the staff town hall, the parent town hall. I thought, Scott, you ran those very, very well. I think that was an unenviable task in a lot of ways. And I think, I can't imagine doing a better job with that. I think it's just a lot of just getting the right, real information out there, and, combating, I think, a lot of misinformation that's out there. And that's the case, I think, in all walks of life, not just education, not just COVID. That's a part of the world we live in right now. Town halls. And then as well, the SEA is doing admin surveys right now. We sent those out about a week ago. Hope to have some results to those surveys next week. I just checked before this meeting. We've got, I think the most popular one right now has 35 responses, which not that many yet. So hopefully we'll get some more responses in by there compared to last year. It's not as many as we've had. So hopefully by next week, we'll have some results for those for you guys.
Thank you, Gordon. Okay, next, trustees, whoever like to start, hop on in, or I'll pick a square.
I'll start. I just want to piggyback with what everyone said, or especially what Gordon just said. And Gordon, I appreciate all of your questions in the fiscal prioritization team meeting, because I've been in education for a long time, and I still have questions in meetings where I'm like, I think everyone else knows this, but so thank you so much. And just want to say the transparency and leadership that has been spoken to, and distributed leadership and communication in our district is amazing. So it takes a lot of hard work. So just really proud to be a part of this team, and through all that we're going through, witnessed a lot of and participated in a lot of good meetings recently. So thanks to the whole team.
All right, thank you. Who's next? Amanda?
All right. I also attended the town hall for parents, and gonna also piggyback, but I really want to publicly commend and thank our superintendent for the way he conducts those meetings. And I just couldn't believe that he just kept answering the questions. I mean, I could believe it because I know the way that Scott leads, but it went on for quite a while. Every single question was addressed and answered, including, it wasn't just send your questions ahead of time and I'll answer the ones that were received by the X o'clock deadline. Nope, people could just keep rolling in on the comment thread with their questions. And again, in these times where we're all receiving like the fire hose of information, and some of it is misinformation, and something from 2 hours ago is already out of date, right? We had like live real-time vaccine updates during the parent meeting. So again, just really, really appreciating the commitment to transparency and responsiveness in these times, for folks to really be heard and have as much opportunity to seek accurate information. It's really a credit to our district, and I thank you.
Thank you. Bill, you're in the next square over.
Gotcha. So I attended the staff town hall, and we went long, and I will tell you that about close to 5:30 or something like, there's still 100 people on it. Scott not only answered all the questions, but they also covered the comments that were made that weren't actually questions. And so that was great. And there was nothing held back. I can tell you, because Gordon was there and Corey was there, I heard, the staff was concerned about vaccines and vaccination and the process and the whole bit. But you know what? That's the same conversation that's going out in the community. It is like the hot thing right now. So thanks, Scott, for, it's very timely. And it gave an opportunity, I think, for people to get stuff out there that has just been running around in their heads. So Friday, I visited CNS and got to visit the huge staff there that puts out all these meals. And I was surprised by how few there are. But I thanked them and told them that we're celebrating an anniversary for them being in 1 year of continuous service. And so, yay. And then finally, the fiscal team, we met this afternoon, and I'm just going to ask Michelle and Scott if you guys can share those talking points with the rest of the board, so that way I don't screw it up. But thanks again for that. And again, no holds barred, everything that's out there, and including what we're not sure of. And so I'd rather know that than get surprised. So thank you. And that's it for me.
Great, thank you. Carolyn.
Yes, I'm up. So I also attended the parent town hall. So Scott, again, thank you for answering all the questions. And Linda, thank you for sifting through all the questions and comments and skillfully just submitting the questions. I know that was probably a lot of work as well. And then I attended the 2 meetings of the dual language immersion task force, and I really enjoyed the rich conversations that led up to some decisions for those 2 meetings. And I attended the racial justice task force as well. That's it for me.
All right, thank you. I'll just jump in. Yeah, I attended the town hall meeting as well. Scott did a great job, very informative. And then one more thing too, if you look, of course, how many times do you look behind you to show a picture on a Zoom meeting? It's like, okay, well, anyways, it's not behind me. But thank you to Roy Segura's class for providing us with the fantastic artwork to put behind us. I guess this is how they do with the weather too, right? And over here, okay, so with that, we're gonna move on to presentations. And Scott, would you like to introduce Mr. Broadhurst regarding our school program?
It would be my honor. Our flagship middle school that Mr. Broadhurst has had the honor and pleasure to lead for several years now is making good progress during distance learning as they were previously during regular time. So it is my privilege to turn it over to Mr. Broadhurst for his presentation.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Turnbull. I'm just going to share a screen, and George and I practiced this earlier, so it should work. Could you let me know if you can see the presentation? Okay, all right. Well, this is a little different from normal presentations. I'm used to being in the boardroom and being in front of you all, but it seems like we've been meeting in this type of format for some time now. So it's my pleasure to talk with you this evening. When I was thinking about what I would present this year, obviously distance learning was on my mind, and I thought you would enjoy hearing about the opportunities that we have here at New Brighton to further engage our students outside of the distance learning classroom. And so despite being in the distance learning environment, we still are trying to engage our students and find places for them to find their niche. And so tonight I'm going to present on cohorts, clubs, and athletics at New Brighton Middle School. And I'd like to start by giving some kudos to staff members, because most of the staff members are volunteering to provide these opportunities. And even the classified members that are supervising cohorts during the school day, during their work hours, they know that they didn't have to do this, that they had a choice. And when they asked, of course, like so many SUESD employees, they stepped up. And then, of course, I'd like to recognize Mr. Barrett Gordon, who's here, because I think he deserves recognition for being one of those trailblazers in terms of certificated staff members who were happy to come back on site and work with students in person. And so I'd like to make sure that we recognize the classified staff members, the certificated staff members also who are helping out, and we have a couple of volunteers. So I know that you are aware of our cohorts at our school sites, and I just wanted to share a little bit more information with regards to ours. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Mr. Barrett's cohort, the 6th, 7th, and the 8th grade cohort. And I thought I would take a few shots because it's a little more interesting to look at that rather than just look at the labels. So as you know, Mr. Barrett, he's serving his SDC special day class students in his small group cohort, which is one of the first ones that we started. And besides teaching his students, they're also attending their other classes online while he's in the classroom with them. And that cohort is meeting on Wednesdays and Fridays from 9 to 12:30 p.m. Every week. Long before we got that cohort going, we knew that there were students who needed assistance. And so it was great to see that one start first. And then shortly after, we started with other cohorts, a 6th and a 7th grade, and then we recently added an 8th grade cohort. And the top left and the bottom left and the bottom right are the examples of the other cohorts, and Mr. Barrett's cohort is the top right photograph there. So the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade cohorts are meeting on Tuesdays and Wednesdays and Thursdays. And it just feels so right to have these students on campus and seeing them engaging and attending their online classes. in contrast to the difficulties that many were experiencing in distance learning. And I don't know if you've had these experiences. That I feel fortunate to be able to connect and connect with the students and make contact with them, albeit safely in a social distancing manner, because the students are the reasons that we got into education, to help students, and seeing them in the cohorts, it just feels really like it's the correct thing to do. And I only wish we could offer more cohorts. We're kind of limited by the staff who can supervise them. But as you've heard prior to me talking, vaccinations are happening, and hybrid learning is on the calendar for our younger students, and we hope it's coming for New Brighton in the not too distant future. So I'd like to recognize Amy Gonzalez and Corey Cox. They're monitoring the 6th grade cohort. Again, they didn't have to. I asked them if they were willing to, and they stepped up and said they would. Barbara Castro is monitoring the 7th grade, and Enrique Domo is monitoring the 8th grade cohort. So all those 4 employees are classified members. And again, so proud of them for stepping up and facilitating getting students back on campus in a cohort where students can attend their online classes and get some support. And some of our students are still struggling despite being on campus. We're trying to work with them as best as we can. But I was talking to one of our 7th grade cohort members. This student happens to have an IEP for a learning disability. The student is also an EL student. And so I asked the student, well, how are your grades looking? And she said, well, I did have 4 Fs and 2 Cs, but now I have 4 As and 2 Fs. And so it just made my heart swell, just having that conversation with her and thinking, the difference that we're making for that student. So besides the cohorts, we do have some clubs and athletics happening at New Brighton. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about the different clubs we have, and then I'll end up with some of the athletics that we're currently offering. So we have an Among Us club, which I had no clue what Among Us is. So I had to ask Mr. Webb, and apparently he must know, because he's the one who's hosting this club, along with help from Miss Maddox and Mix Wit. They also help and join in and play the game. And apparently it's a very popular game. It's a multiplayer game where students assume identities of a spaceship crew, and their mission, I believe, is to get the spaceship crew back to Earth. The problem is that one of the crew members, and the students assume a crew member, one or two of the crew members are imposters or shape-shifting aliens, and they try to cause all kinds of mischief and actually eliminate some of the crew. And every time a crew member is eliminated, there's a discussion about who it might be. And if they can't deduce who the imposter is, then life goes on, and they won't get a chance to talk about who they think it is until another crew member has been exterminated. So during the game, the non-alien crew members, they're performing tasks on the spaceship, and they can't talk unless a death is reported, and then they can openly debate and try to figure out who the imposter is. And if the imposter is voted off, the crew wins. And but if the group accidentally votes off a crew member, everything goes back to maintaining the ship until another body is found and a discussion is held. So Mr. Webb's telling me that they have about 30 to 40 kids at each meeting. and they go into breakout rooms, have games with 8 to 10 other students, and then they use the Zoom meeting to communicate when it's time for discussion. And students are reporting it's a great way to meet new people, especially in this distance learning environment. They also are appreciative because it's hard to get a game with up to 10 people going by themselves. So the club is great because there's a lot of people that they can play with. And as I said, Mick Swit and Miss Maddox are also joining in, and they enjoy interacting with students outside the classroom. And that club takes place on Fridays at 1 p.m.
That looks like a lot of fun. Sign me up.
Well, I can send any of you the links to these meetings if you'd like to join them at anytime. But kudos to Mr. Webb for starting that club, and Miss Maddox and Mick Witt for helping to support it and play along with the students. So you mentioned Mr. Segura earlier, and it seems like his artwork is all over the place, all over the city. It's all over my office, and it's nice to see in the boardroom and in various backgrounds. So Mr. Segura is hosting an art club. He was doing that. It's been called various things, drawing club. At one time it was called an anime club. He's been doing it for quite some time, so not just this year. So I'm glad he's been able to continue to do that on Wednesdays at 1 o'clock. And he's reporting that the students in this club are having a great time and connecting via art. And typical activities include discussions and sharing of the artwork that any of the members are working on. Mr. Segura also will work on skills to improve their artwork. For example, he might present on a lesson on shading or proportion or drawing from memory or perspective. And he also presents lessons based on what students might be interested in. As you can imagine, students are very interested in cartooning and cartoons, so he's presented lessons on that, portraits among other things, and he likes to present step-by-step procedures to help the students develop their skills. And I think we all know the standard of work that Mr. Segura can draw from his students. And again, I'm very thankful that he's willing to give up some of his time to host the art club and to be open to presenting on what students want to learn about with regard to art, and provide a venue for them to connect. Our New Brighton librarian, Michelle Jesberg, is another example of an employee who goes way above and beyond. And she is doing a fantastic job of running our library, and had our library open during distance learning, has had it open for quite some time now. And just really enjoys getting books in students' hands and promoting reading. So she's hosting a book club, which is on Mondays at 1 o'clock. And typically the book suggestion will come from the students. I believe that the current selection they're reading is called Matched. And as she does always, she's going above and beyond. She's actually delivering books to the book club members so they can be a participant in the book club. And this isn't the first time that she's delivered books to students during distance learning. So she just goes above and beyond this. And during their meetings, there's usually a discussion of the pages that were assigned, and she'll usually have some questions that help get the discussion going. So it drives the discussion forward, and they'll decide on what what the pages are for the next meeting. And she also likes to incorporate projects into the books that they're reading. For example, when they were reading The Diary of a Young Girl, she was working on having the students learn how to journal. And then after reading Alice in Wonderland, they had a Mad Hatter tea party. And so she's looking forward to trying to create projects that can be done in this distance learning format, in the book club format. And so just another example of an employee that we're so lucky to have in our district. I thought I saw Miss Hadrius here earlier on. Miss Hadrius is hosting the student council. They meet on Thursdays at 1 o'clock. And I wanted to chime in earlier when you were asking questions of Cami, because I actually was sitting in on a meeting and hearing them go through the same kind of things that boards go through in terms of making motions and seconding motions and voting on motions. And just amazing to see 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students who are stepping up to lead. And it just always gives me hope for the future when we see students like this. So it's multi-grade representation, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And obviously they get a chance to practice their leadership skills. And they work on planning events. And typically now in this distance learning environment, it has been Spirit Days or Spirit Weeks, but when they're on campus, obviously, when conditions allow, that they plan events like Halloween grams or holiday grams or before breaks, they would plan different Spirit Days. And then obviously when they're in session, they plan dances and fundraise, such as Pennies for Patients and toy collection drive before winter break. It's a great place for students to practice their philanthropy and leadership skills. And so I'm very proud of our student council. Tech Club is a new club that is actually just getting off the ground, and it's very exciting. And this is, although it's hosted by Amy Cummins, she wanted to give kudos to a couple of 8th grade student leaders, Joseph Gagne and Kazunori Ortha, because they were the impetus, according to her, behind getting a tech club. And they are currently, or I don't know if they're actually in first or in currently, but they've been in Miss Cummins' coding class, which is a popular class here at New Brighton Middle School. And so they were students of hers and they wanted to get this tech club going. And so their ideas are to allow students to collaborate and learn using technology skills and game design in programming engines such as FlowLab and Code Naturally. And they want this club to help students understand more about computer programming and what it can do, and also to help them learn some game design techniques. They're hoping that when students return to school and they can meet on campus, that they'll open up to other tech topics such as robotics and 3D printing. And basically their goals for this club are they want to give students the opportunities to learn new technologies and collaborate with other students on projects. Great skills, of course. And they're not quite sure how they want to do this, but they want to contribute to the community in some way. And they would also like to research some technology fairs and other opportunities. And again, student leaders stepping up, but also wouldn't happen without Miss Cummings hosting the group. We have had, used to be the Gay Straight Alliance, and then it became the Queer Straight Alliance at New Brighton Middle School for quite some time. And this is currently hosted by Miss Marquez and Mix Witt. They've also recently added Mr. Kevin Kim. He's a counseling intern, and he's been joining the group so that he can talk about matters relating to counseling and mental health. And so this club consists of social game time, and education and advocacy around issues pertaining to their group. They also include discussion and education on queer history and music. They like to discuss current events in the community, as well as education in mental health and topics such as how to approach coming out, and how to come out, and safety on campus, and how to navigate issues of gender and sexuality on campus safely. And one of their current concerns at this time is working towards safe gender neutral bathrooms and changing rooms on campus for when they return. I'm told it has currently a maximum of about 10 students this year, but last year when they were in session, it had up to 30. So I think perhaps being in the distance learning environment may have affected the attendance, but it's been running really strong in these last few years when we were on campus, and I'm glad to see it's still currently providing a space for our students. I want to talk a little bit about our athletics because I'm told by Mr. Domo that currently the other middle schools in our area are about 3 to 4 weeks behind us and sort of looking to us to see how we're managing things. We do have 2 activities going on right now, obviously being done following all the precautions. We have a golf team that's hosted by Mr. Webb and Mr. Domo. They're meeting, excuse me. They are meeting on Tuesdays and Thursdays. That's from 4 to 5. There's currently 30 students who are on the golf team, which is too many to sort of work with at one time. So there's sort of a group of 15 that will meet on one of those days, and another group of 15 will meet on the other days. And they are in an intramural. They're playing intramurally currently, but they hope to be able to play against other schools if conditions allow, if we're in the red in the future at some point in time. So they're currently going to Castle out in Corralitos area, De La Viega and Seascape, and playing amongst themselves, but they do hope to have matches at some point in the future. That will depend on the conditions, and of course, golf is probably one of the activities that is a little easier to pull off in terms of competition, much in the same way that tennis could be, as well as some of the track and field events or cross country. But we'll keep our fingers crossed and hopefully be able to host some if conditions allow us. With regards to the other activity, as I said, actually I was talking to Michelle Kennedy earlier on. She was observing the flag football that was going on the New Brighton fields today. I think we had over 40 students out there today. Mr. Domo is helping out. Mr. Dwight Lowry, he's the SoCal High School coach, is helping out, as well as one of our parents, TJ Moran. They're meeting on Wednesdays from 4 to 5. It's obviously non-contact, a lot of non-contact drills, big group that's split into smaller groups and working in stations. And what I observed today was a lot of conditioning, students sprinting back and forth, push-ups, working on ladders, working on agility drills, high knee drills, and just, again, connecting with students out there who are really enjoying it. And I was not sure. I think it's a combination of both. Are they happy to be back on campus and around some friends, or happy to be able to do some conditioning in a school environment? So I think it's a little bit of both. And I was reflecting with one of the students today how, I mean, this is great to have this going, but hopefully in the future we can get to the point where we had flag football games against other schools on the field on a Friday afternoon. And those of you who were able to, I think most of you here may have witnessed that last year. It was quite a community event on Fridays last year to see us play against the other middle schools and have a whole DJ set up and an announcer set up, and it was quite a spectacle. So I'm happy to say that we've got some flag football conditioning happening, and it's all being done safely. There's no contact, and it's nice to think that we're sort of leading the way there regarding other middle schools, and they're kind of looking to us and asking Mr. Domo about the things that we're doing to pull that off. So I'd just like to conclude by saying that, you know, MBMS has had a history of providing extracurricular clubs, and I've always liked to refer to them as the jewels in the crown that is MBMS, or the jewels in the crown of New Brighton Middle School. And I'm just really thankful that we have staff who are willing to offer a place for students to gather and to make some great memories while they are middle school students. And I think that's part of the beauty of being at middle school, is to learn, obviously, to create friendships and great memories. There's a couple of shots from flag football conditioning practice today. And I hope I haven't gone too long, but that kind of concludes my presentation. So, and I'll stop sharing. And if there are any questions, I'll answer those questions.
Never too long for that. That was a great presentation right there. Sounds like a fun place to be. A lot of different activities.
Again, you have to we have to give kudos to all the staff who are willing to do that. And I think you've heard it in the town halls where SUESD staff are stepping up. And I'm happy to report that we've got staff happy to step up and provide a space for students to, you know, create a connection and create a bond. I see Phil has his hand raised.
Yeah, are the athletics co-ed?
All the athletics are co-ed. Unfortunately, or currently, there aren't any females. I didn't see any females at flag football, but I know in the team last year, it was co-ed, and golf is co-ed. Any other questions?
Yeah, so I know flag football and golf are in person now. As far as art goes, is that through Zoom as well? Or do they meet in an art class or outdoors?
No. All these activities are being done in a distance learning format.
Okay. Oh, even
let me just not golf, excuse me, not golf. Among Us Club, Art Club, Book Club, Student Council, Tech Club. Yeah, they're all being done via Zoom or Google Meets currently. With the exception of the flag football and the golf team.
No, it sounds all very interesting. I think it's great. Great programs. Any other questions?
Sure, I have one. Do you anticipate that these are all still going to be available when we return to hybrid learning?
Yes. Yes, and possibly adding some others.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, we've had a math puzzle club that didn't seem to attract too many people, but I think when we're on campus and clubs are happening right after school gets out, I think we definitely saw that with the Queer Straight Alliance, is the distance learning can affect the attendance, but definitely these will still run during hybrid learning and with the possible addition of others.
Thank you. That was a really informative presentation, and it's just really, I mean, it's really wonderful the way our staff has stepped up. It is truly incredible. It's incredible with what folks are doing for the cohorts, and then again, all these extra opportunities for our kids. So much appreciated.
Yeah, again, just in SUESD staff stepping up. And if I'm finished, I just want to echo what's been said about Scott's performance with regards to the town halls. And I know he had a lot of support from the admin team, but I just was just really proud of you, Scott, and just happy that we have you at the helm, because you did such a fantastic job of all the town halls. But I think the last one was one where I think you really showed your skills in successfully navigating a town hall and all the potential landmines that one might step on or what might be placed in front of us. And thanks, thank you for having me this evening and presenting on clubs, cohorts, and activities.
I just wanted to add many thanks to you and your staff. I have 2 children that are in several of those clubs, and they've really been enjoying them. So thank you very much for putting those together.
And thank you, Craig, for you and your whole staff, because we know I really appreciated when you came up with this focus this time, because while we know the core mission of school is academics, it's these kind of opportunities that give a school juice. And New Brighton has a lot of juice over there, and makes students want to attend school. So we really appreciate you and your staff.
Thank you.
I do have one public comment, if I may proceed to that, Ted, on text. I never get those on text, so I'm kind of excited.
Okay.
And it says, are there any clubs open to additional staff as volunteers? And then I just get, in this very second, I got to follow up to that, like the book club or tech club. So the way I'm interpreting that is if there are staff members who would like to help out with those clubs, are the leaders open to that help?
I would imagine that any of our hosts of clubs would be open to staff members helping host a club. Absolutely. I can't imagine anybody would turn them down.
So for that person who texted to the text number, I would just say, please reach out via email. Either if this is a staff member, they know how to do that, but I'm assuming it's staff. But either way, reach out to Principal Broadhurst or Ms. Hadrius, and they'll point you in the right direction.
They can definitely reach out to myself or Ms. Hadrius, and we'll make the connections, because many hands make light work. The more the merrier, in terms of trying to provide a place of connection and learning and fun for our students.
That's all for me.
Phil?
So I'm not volunteering to do any of this, but is there a possibility that anyone would be interested in how to make a YouTube video or a dance class?
I would certainly be interested in how to make a YouTube video. I think that I think many of our students would too. And I think if there was an online dance class, that would be a huge hit with our students. You know, in fact, we could call it a Zumba club.
Yeah, that's a freebie, no charge.
Now, okay, no, those
here we go.
That would be great. Great ideas. We just need somebody to step up and host that club.
Oh, I see Phil jumping in. He'll do the hustle.
I started out by saying I am not volunteering to do it. Remember that? It's on the tape.
I know. I forgot about that one. Okay. That's great. Any other questions or comments?
There's nothing else on text.
Nothing on email.
Nothing on Zoom.
Okay, very good. Craig, thanks. That was great. Great presentation.
You're more than welcome, and thank you. Thank you.
And it looks like Scott is sending the message that we need to move on to the next item, which is a presentation regarding COVID-19 and distant learning.
Thank you, Ted. Just trying to keep a smooth transition going here. And I went one slide too far in that effort. So of course, this is our main topic that everybody is dealing with from all parts of our district and all parts of our community. And so it is the ultimate collaboration from the county to all of our sites to try to, it's really about increasing in-person learning and in-person opportunities, as you heard from Craig's presentation. And so, you know, we know that the small cohorts made a difference with a small number of students, many of whom need that support the most. And hybrid, moving towards hybrid, which we'll talk about in this presentation, is really just an effort to move that along further and get more students on campus safely, but increase those in-person learning opportunities. So we'll talk about all of that and all the efforts that are going into it with a focus on vaccines, the case rate for COVID-19, the adjusted case rate, and next steps, especially as it relates to hybrid. And I would just say before I dive into the rest of the slides that it's interesting, you know, just our process with board dockets and presentations is, you know, we wrap these up about a week before the actual board meeting happens. And in COVID time, you know, a week is light years. And so I try to craft it in a way that it gives talking points without focusing on specific data in the presentation, because everything changes quickly. It's been mentioned many times tonight about town halls, and town halls are really a part of the way that we try to make sure that there is a continuous, never-ending communication loop. And this is just a visual that we've put together to try to symbolize that. And, you know, we really focus on all stakeholders, making sure that different teams from different perspectives have an opportunity to weigh in on how we're handling COVID-19, and especially how we're preparing for a hybrid learning environment. Those teams have lots of discussion, and we try not to start with a bias when we lead those discussions, but to let the discussions kind of take place naturally so that we can come to the best conclusions and best consensus that we can. Of course, we do a lot of surveys to try to get input from all different parts, parents, staff, classified staff, certificated staff. We've even done students earlier, and take all of that input and just keep trying to process it in a way that makes the best end result. The town halls, again, were a good example, and I think we had every administrator, every member of administrative council on there, and that's all voluntary. And they just really step up to the plate and make sure that they're there, and makes a big difference, because it's one thing to answer something from a district level, but we all know how it is. You know, those folks on the site are the ones that our parents know, and having them there to answer questions specifically about their site makes a big difference, and I think just shows the commitment. And then having for the first time, because I hadn't invited them before, the first time having our two union presidents there co-presenting and you know, on with us in a joint collaborative fashion, again, shows the whole community that we're all in this together, and that every single part of the organization only wants two things: students back on campus, but to do it safely. And so all of this is a way that we keep this communication cycle going. We get the survey results, we talk about them, we run them out into town halls. We're constantly at the superintendent level talking with the other superintendents, focusing on best practices, how to move consistently, but still allowing each district, you know, from a district the size of 100 or 150 students, all the way to a district the size of almost 20,000 and everything in between, trying to find those ways we can move consistently, but still allowing some flexibility for scale. And we meet twice a month, or twice a week, I should say, every Monday morning and every Friday morning as a group of superintendents to continue those conversations. So it really is from the top on down, you could say. Our principals are excellent at taking all of this information that we discuss out to staff meetings so that we can get input from each site, and then kind of taking out from the whole staff site-based reopening teams and having those conversations with those teams so that you can have it in a little bit more of a concise forum. And then Jessica has really taken that district leadership team model and pulled out subcommittees to focus on, for example, elementary hybrid schedules, to make sure that we're really vetting that all the way through, because this is a brand new concept. I think perhaps sometimes in the general public, there's a conception that hybrid is just an easy combination of distance learning and in-person learning, but really does kind of create this third element of how to address both of those simultaneously on the same day. And so a lot of work's gone into that, and the level of professional development that we had right after the break for not only that first staff development day, but the 2 weeks thereafter was something to really be proud of, and something that I think our staff benefited from and really engaged with. And of course, we got to put it all together, right? So we work on the official part of this through memorandums of understanding with both of our labor groups to make sure everything's spelled out, that we'll keep them safe as possible while they move closer and closer to coming back in a more full capacity with our students. Of course, in our administrative council, this is what we talk about, gosh, a good 80 to 90% of the time. And then, of course, we bring it to you so that our board of trustees can have ultimate weigh-in, and that the public can hear exactly what's going on in this forum as well as the other forums. So I know that's a lot of information for one slide, but we really take pride in this, and that this thing has to be a continuous communication loop because it's new, and we're really trying to achieve that duality of safety and more students on campus. So the best laid plans. We've kind of been on the cusp of hybrid in my mind at least 3 times, if that seems possible. Back in the summer, we were really gearing up for that direction until, again, we had one of those times where the case rate kind of dipped. Maybe as a society, we lightened up a little bit, and then we saw a spike, right? And we had that again, not too much after that. And we developed this plan, as we started thinking that perhaps in January we could have came back. This was before the holidays, and we kind of laid out a plan where we could start to bring small cohorts back, and we were able to do that. And then an idea about bringing students back in January in that soft opening kind of way, where we'd bring back TK through first grade at our elementaries first, and 6th grade at the middle school. And at that time, we were looking at the different tiers and saying, should we do it in red? Should we do it in orange? And that was all kind of as we were learning about the blueprint for a safer economy, and in the different tiers, purple being the widespread tier all the way down to yellow, which is the safest, and seeing if we could get at least into the red. But then, of course, like everything with this, things started to change. We had a spike. And so we kind of had to say, well, we have these plans, let's hold on to these plans and continue to refine them even better. But we kind of had to hold off on the hybrid part of it, even though we focused and maintained some of the other parts. Instead of going to orange, we kind of reverted back to purple. And so we had to put those hybrid plans specifically on hold while we monitored the data. During this time, the one thing that really did increase was our ability to do surveillance testing. Again, credit where credit is due. County Office of Education has just been phenomenal in their level of support to us districts. And they instituted a surveillance program. You'll hear different information about what the best intervals or cadence, as has become kind of the new term of testing, should be. The more often, the better is the common sense approach, right? We're on an every 2-month cycle. I can tell you myself, I've been to the COE 3 times since I've started the program. Knock on wood, all negative so far. But it's a very smooth process. You're in and out of there of, gosh, maybe 5-10 minutes after once your appointment time comes along. And so in that part, and I guess just as our whole system, as a county system of schools, and I guess you could say even as a society, it's been interesting. At the very beginning of this, COVID testing was like, okay, how does that work? What happens? And now pretty much have it down to a science and to our routine. And we'll talk a little bit more about surveillance testing as we get into looking what things may change and ramp up a little bit as we move into a hybrid environment. But we definitely have the systems in place to be able to do that and do that regularly. And again, something that seemed like, just a pipe dream not too long ago, and that's the vaccines. And as has been mentioned tonight, this has been, understandably a source of a lot of emotion. Why wouldn't it be? And we won't focus on the negative much. I will say that, of course, wish that the originally intended system of vaccines, where we would have a full supply and allotment across the county, and all the 5,000 plus educators could go through in a week for their first dose, and then later after that, their second dose. We can only wish that that would have come to fruition as planned. I'm proud to be a part of the county that had, a system in place for that. It didn't roll out quite like that. So we had to make do with smaller batches of the vaccine availability. I think all of the districts, I know all of the superintendents do a little mini celebration when we get that text to say, hey, we got another 100 doses, and we divvy that up by district, by enrollment, so that it's as fair as possible. So maybe it didn't, because of the supply chain, only because of the supply chain, it didn't go quite as smoothly as we would have liked. And of course, we had to make some hard decisions about who to vaccinate first, and how the interplay between honoring the work that's already been done on campus also is, on the other side, what had to happen to be able to bring students back in a hybrid setting first. Those are really difficult decisions. I understand, we talked about that a lot in the town hall. I understand that there are going to be no easy answers, easily agreed to answers on that, but we did the best we could, and now it's really rolling. And so we've had 105 slots allotted to us as a district now in 3 or 4 different waves. And so all of our elementary staff now have been offered a slot. So that is something to celebrate. So that, that's all of the TK through 5th grade teachers and associated staff, and that's custodians, that's office managers, that's everybody associated. We even got into student teachers, a very small handful of student teachers, because we want everybody that's going to eventually be back in the elementary hybrid setting to have had the chance to be vaccinated. Some of our staff, just being the type of people they are, before we even got to their level of prioritization and being able to offer a county slot, reached out to their primary care physician or other means, and were able to get vaccinated. One entire grade level team at one of our elementary schools sent me an email saying, we got everybody on our team, and that just shows, I hope that shows the community how badly we and how badly our teachers want to have our students back on campus, and to do that safely. So vaccines are moving. Literally tonight, right before the board meeting, between closed session and open session, I was inviting middle school teachers. So that's how far we're working up. We'll talk a little bit later in the presentation how middle school, is a little bit different of a decision focal point on when to bring them back in hybrid. So they're a little bit further down the road. And so that's why we, prioritize them in the order that we did. But that just shows you how far we're getting along, that we're inviting middle school teachers now. We're getting closer and closer to be able to offer our whole staff a vaccination slot. So we're very excited about that. And definitely within the last week or so, that has been the biggest focus point and the biggest thing now to celebrate. The Governor's Safe Schools for All plan has been driving a lot of the conversation ever since back at the very end of 2020, December 30th in 2020. It's kind of redirected some of the conversation, and there were some positives that came out of that. And then again, not to focus too much on the negative, there was some points of that original plan that was a lot of pushback from pretty much everybody in the education coalition. And some of those were some rush timelines to be able to get everything done by February 1st, and the idea of fiscal incentives. And you can even get into the nature of those fiscal incentives and if they were really additional fiscal incentives, but we won't belabor that part of it. Fortunately, there has been some revision of those plans, and some of the positive points have stuck, and some of the points that weren't really right for schools have been scrapped. Part of what has been scrapped are those arbitrary deadlines of February 1st and March 1st, and instead, in its place, a more reasonable approach that says when when your local education agency is ready, based on all the different variables such as case rates, such as vaccination, if that's the way your district is proceeding, then you submit certain documents that we'll talk about in just a minute. You make sure that those are on file with public health, and then when all of those things are in place, then you can come back, not driven by again an arbitrary deadline. So I think most of the education community has been very happy about that change. As far as the back to the drawing part of it is really kind of in relation to the tiers. And so understandably so, I think we've gone, as we go through that cycle of continuous conversation that I mentioned earlier, we've kind of gone back and forth between, should we come back in the red tier to hybrid? Should we wait to the orange? If the governor's plan did change one thing, without having to rehash it afterwards, it was that focus on, instead of just, bringing schools back in general, it narrowed the focus down to elementary. And with the sound reasoning, I think most people will agree now that younger children are less likely to spread the virus. And so the focus being more on elementary with that scientific kind of knowledge base, and then saying that consider coming back in the purple and identified, rather than just a colored tier, a case rate, an adjusted case rate of 25 per 100,000 population. And so that was an important change, and seemingly seems like a reasonable change to consider, that as that case rate gets below 25, even if it's not all the way down to 7 where it needs to be for the red tier, if you have other systems in place, like for us, vaccines, that those are two pathways to get safer and safer implementation of elementary hybrid. And elementary for us is K5, in some districts is K6, but for us, elementary is definitely K5, and that is driven not only by the age of the students, but of course, the different kind of departmentalized schedule that you see at a middle school setting. So those were the areas that we kind of had to go back to the drawing board on and shift some things a little bit. But we also were determined to stay on track with some things. And so those were small cohorts, as has been mentioned several times tonight. Hybrid planning to make sure that although things always have to be tinkered with because this is all new, a lot of this information we already had planned out. Hybrid staff development, as I mentioned earlier. And then some of the hard and fast things like our facilities preparedness, most specifically our ventilation, in which all of our classrooms are being upgraded or have been upgraded to the MERV 13 filters, and a air purifier purchased for every classroom and space that's occupied on campus, so that we can have that air scrubbed regularly. A little bit more focus on the Safe Schools for All plan. I'll go through some of these quickly that I've already mentioned. The fiscal incentives we mentioned are no longer driven by those arbitrary deadlines, and I think is chance that once the governor's budget is finally approved, will not necessarily be a part of the final governor's budget. And instead, now we're focusing on bringing elementary students back when it's safe, as each district decides that. It did require some different documentation. We heard a lot actually in the town hall about waivers, and I think that term just gets kind of used in a different format. There was a previous system that had elementary schools apply for a waiver. Now each district, to be able to consider bringing their elementary schools back in a hybrid setting, have to submit a COVID-19 safety plan. The safety plan consists of, it's the umbrella term for two different documents that rest under it. That's the school safety checklist and the COVID-19 prevention program. Those have to be submitted via the county office to public health, which ours have been. And we went through all the different mechanisms that you have to for that, including getting some input from labor and some input from parents on those plans, and then making sure that they're posted. They're posted in our awesome light box that our tech department has which I just really appreciate as one little tool that I hope helps parents or community members when they go to the website. That's the first thing that pops up and hits them. And I'm constantly asking our webmasters to update that with different documents so that we kind of shed the older documents and make sure everything new and current is up there. And they're always up to the task almost immediately, no matter when they're asked. And so we really appreciate that. So if you're looking for some of those documents, just type in suesd.org and they will pop up in the box. We talked about the push for elementary and why it's based on that understanding that younger children generally don't spread the virus the same way that adults do. We talked about the different cadences of testing. And so a couple of things on this. So right now our case rate, as you probably know, is down to 12.2. Right after the holidays, it had been in the 70s, if I remember right. So we are definitely on the case rate heading in the right direction. 7 or lower on that adjusted case rate is the threshold for the red tier. And the red tier, solidly in the red tier, which we're defining as 2 weeks, staying in the red tier is our threshold for bringing back our middle school in a hybrid setting. So we're not there yet. And once we get there, we'll need to stay there solidly for 2 weeks with the thinking being that you don't want to just dip into red and then pop back up and have to start up school and stop it and restart it. But if we can get 7 or below, stay there for a couple weeks, then of course we won't wait till that full 2 weeks. We'll start making plans once we get into the red tier to communicate to our parents that, hey, in a few weeks, we could be coming back if the case rate continues. So we'll give as much advance notice on that to our middle school families as we watch that. For testing, one of those ideas that got scrapped from the original Safe Schools for All plan was the idea that in order to do this, to come back in this hybrid setting, that you would have to test all students and staff weekly. As good as our testing program is, that level of surveillance testing is simply not feasible. And it looks like that the student testing component is no longer going to be a requirement, in that you just need to increase the regularity of staff testing. And what we think we can do with the county support is every 2 weeks instead of every 2 months for the staff that is on site during hybrid instruction. So increased staff testing, but not being able to go down to the student level of testing. Again, especially with younger kids, we think that provides a high level of safety and is feasible with the resources that we have. We talked about where we are with the case rate and that we are moving in the right direction with that. And just a little bit more on vaccines. We have had a mixture of the 2 different vaccines in terms of some folks are getting Pfizer, some folks are getting Moderna. We know that there is a difference of a week between the interim of your first and second dose with those. And so we're factoring that in. As you probably know by now, we have been able to give exact dates, which was, I can't tell you how rewarding that was after so many times this year, having to say we're looking and we're ballparking. It was even though it was only for TK through 1, it was very rewarding to be able to give an exact date of March 15th to bring those grade levels back TK through 1. And of course, those dates aren't being chosen arbitrarily. We're backwards planning it from either 5 or 6 weeks, depending on which version of the vaccine each team received. And so part of our MOU and part of our belief, not just the MOU, is that teachers and staff should be vaccinated to come back to a hybrid model, and that it should take the full period. And that includes generally a week to 2 weeks after the second dose. We try to err on the side of 2 full weeks. There's a couple, depending on where the dates fall, there's a couple of places where I ask like maybe a week and a half to, not quite the full 2 weeks. I think, that part still has a little bit of flexibility because the concept is there. It's the 2 full doses and an interim period afterwards, because, from general understanding, the more days after the second dose, the stronger the vaccine works. And so the time that I wrote this, we had said mid-March for kindergarten. Of course, we were able to identify a firm date for that. Right now, we're kind of seeing how everybody shakes out with grades 2 through 5. And I don't have an exact date for you there, but you can see how the dates are being developed, thinking through that vaccine, that full cycle of the vaccine process, and then backwards planning it from there. We should have those dates to you very soon. Again, we'll continue with this cycle. I won't belabor it this time around, but I just want to emphasize that we take all of this information. Now we have a good chunk of our staff vaccinated. We'll take a look at the dates. Where does that put us for the grade levels? And, these decisions, a single room with a couple of administrators. They'll go through all of these to make sure that everybody has a say in the process, and more than just the say, oftentimes things that we might not have thought of, and so that we can make the best decisions we can with everybody's well-being in mind. So as we get more of our staff vaccinated, I think it goes without saying, that just generally that vaccine is not like a suit of armor, right? It helps, and it helps if COVID is contracted, to make it a less severe strain, perhaps. But for a variety of reasons, not 100% of staff are going to be vaccinated. Districts cannot mandate, nor would we want to mandate vaccinations. There are some good reasons not to. And so my point being is that we must and we will stay vigilant as we come back for more and more in-person learning, with all of the safety measures that have become ingrained now, and that's mask wearing, social distancing, hand washing. Our nurse already has plans for how to make sure that all students are trained. You can't, for young students, you don't just tell them wash your hands really well. You show them how to do it. We've talked about COVID-19 testing, screening, including checking temperatures, and making sure that we have really good systems in place for reporting any either positive cases or direct exposures to a positive case. And so I know I've mentioned it before, but I just want to give a shout out to our nurse, Vicki Grisham, and our personnel coordinator, Sandy Figueroa, because they are really the ones that handle the bulk of those reports that come into us, and then make sure that all of the right communication goes out if somebody was exposed, and to make sure that folks are quarantining for the right amount of time to protect them and to protect the rest of us. So the vaccines don't in any way, shape, or form mean that we can lighten up on this. We must stay vigilant on it, and we will. Finally, just some specific documents and plans that we regularly refer to. We know that there's a lot of information out there on the web on this, and so while we're always looking for different information, we also try to focus in on the documents that we consider our bedrocks. I would say that our County Office of Education's COVID-19 Health Guidance for Schools is our key bedrock. We literally take this and have taken it in ADCO and spend entire meetings just going through it, jigsawing it, asking each other questions, looking at the scenarios. What would you do in this scenario? So it's not just something that we bookmark and leave. We really try to dig in, and so that we're as ready for any potential situation as possible. Of course, the CDPH guidelines are very influential and meaningful. And then, as I said earlier, our own plans are up on our website as we take all of that information and distill it down to our own practices. And we will be working on a similar kind of documentation for our hybrid program as we get closer and closer to the excited return date. So that's packing in everything that we do into a presentation, and I'm sure I overlooked some things, but that's the gist of it. And now I would open it up to questions and comments from the board.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. That was a wealth of information. Any questions from the board? Just go ahead and jump in.
I guess I had a clarification. So for middle school, you mentioned that we would only be able to come back in moderate and orange. Is that correct?
Red.
And red.
Yeah, I had
For
said,
middle
probably,
school.
I might have confused you because I said at one time we were leaning in that direction, but now through the Safe Schools for All plan, unlike elementary where you can go in that bottom band of purple, so to speak, the threshold is red for middle school.
Okay.
I don't have a question. I just want to say yay for vaccinations. Of course.
Here.
I mean, it's really incredible. And, the partnership, the collaboration that the County Office of Ed and Dr. Sabah have been able to do with Dignity Health for school staff throughout the county is really, really incredible. And I know we're all very, very grateful.
I would classify it as almost like a mission. That when he gets those doses, it's an immediate text at any time on the weekend or whenever. And you can tell that it's something, it's not just a job. He's very passionate about it. So we're very grateful for his leadership.
Good, Phil.
So what a coincidence. It's almost a year to the day that we got booted out of the classrooms.
One of our kindergarten teachers, when I sent out, was that yesterday? It's all kind of a blur. The exact dates. That was their comment. They mentioned that at that time when it all happened, and we actually had to close for that first week, and then it continued. They had their leprechaun traps out for St. Patrick's Day, and here we come along. At that same time, it's flown by, and it's also been a long year. It's amazing that it's been a year.
It's flown by and it's aged us a lot, I know, to be honest. Yeah. I have just a question, and again, if you've mentioned it, I apologize, but with regards to the coordination with our partners with the out of school time program, or CKC, or what, is there any update on, like if you have kids in those programs, they're now being offered a very, very small amount of a great, excellent opportunity of coming back. Very excited about it. But what's going on with that?
Great question. And probably should have included that as one of the bullets, because childcare, is such a big variable in all this. And we kind of worked on that on the beginning, and during the times where hybrid hasn't been in the frame of reality, we kind of somewhat goes to the back burner, but never forgotten. So both of the partners that we have, we've included in all our communication, and both CKC and the City of Capitola, who runs the out of school time, are fully engaged and very responsive. And I would say right now it's in a bit of a brainstorming part of the planning. The out of school time. So I've had conversations with both Jamie and Nikki at City of Capitola, and even talking the specifics, and we haven't done this yet, but that after we get through a wave of vaccines, if they don't have access, might we consider offering some of our slots to their staff or watching our kids on their off days. So that's the level that we're engaging in, and trying to figure out how to use both of what we're doing as a school district and the support they're offering, kind of trying to get down to the nitty gritty. It's complex, I'll just say that. When you think about the school group and then the out of school time group, we'll figure it out, but it's complex how to figure out how to make sure both of those systems are supporting each other safely. CKC is always been a great childcare partner, and with their model being a little bit more based on funding, obviously, not that everything is, but being less public than a school district or a city. obviously they don't have the staff on hand to be able to jump back right immediately, but I know that they're staying very in tune to what we're doing and trying to figure out how they might be able to kind of ramp back up and support us. But it's complex for them too, because you're talking, to a family that may need 2 days a week rather than a full week, and how all of that works, both just on the logistics, but there's a fiscal factor too. So I guess that's a long way of kind of going around to say that we're in talks. And while there's no clear and easy answers right now, everybody from all parties is committed to trying to find the answer. And I don't know whether we'll reconvene that childcare task force. We always try to, like, if we're going to have a task force meeting, have a real meeting and an outcome for it. So if it's necessary, we will. It may just be right now that we know the input. The input is we need as much childcare as possible to support hybrid learning, and kind of just working with the agencies to see what we can figure out.
I had a question about the hybrid, the asynchronous days for elementary school. I know there had been a lot of different models thrown around, and then I think from the last information I saw, it sounded like for those asynchronous days, they would only get half an hour with the teacher on Zoom. Is that?
Another great question. So thank you. So I'm going to just kind of talk about the first part of that, and then I'll see if Jessica wants to weigh in a little bit more about, synchronous, how synchronous and asynchronous times will be addressed in the hybrid schedule. I will just say though that, we've been working really hard in that big continuous communication cycle of what will the hybrid model look like. And at one time we talked about there could be a possibility we could have to reshuffle rosters if we were going to kind of cull out the distance learning only students into a separate program, so to speak, through lots of discussion and lots of listening from Jessica and from especially all the elementary principals who kind of met with the elementary folks, and with the work that Craig and Christina have led with their leadership team. We have landed on the fact that we're not going to reshuffle rosters. We're not going to kind of create a separate cohort of distance learning only students. Those students will be served in the same roster and by the same teacher or teachers that they have been. And so that was a big tipping point on being able to move forward with some exact dates. And I know it's kind of going on and on a little bit, but I'm really thankful that those groups had such in-depth discussions, because if we would have tried to push that through quickly, I don't think the level of understanding of all the pros and cons and all the details that had to be addressed would have been addressed as well as they have been. So that's a big part of it, that we have landed on that scenario where students are staying in their same class rosters. And I'll see if Jessica wants to add on a little bit about hybrid schedules and addressing the synchronous and asynchronous parts of it.
Yeah, this is a great question, and it's been a topic of conversation, just in terms of screen time for students, in terms of what effectiveness, there is when you're actually teaching lessons to students who are in your class, and also meeting the need of the student who is not in your class and is in a virtual setting. So at the middle school first, I think there was the decision by that team to leave cameras on for the duration of the day, not only to meet the need of the distance only students, so the families who were opting for that solution, they could still maintain their same schedule, their same teachers, their same roster and all of that, and they would engage in a distance learning only environment for the duration of their day, just like they do now. For the students who are in elementary, there's similar discussion, cameras on so they could maintain their roster, they could see their teacher daily. And what we found is that the question of re-rostering really was the hinge point of this conversation, maintaining relationships with the teacher that they've had since the beginning of the year and their classmates that they've had since the beginning of the year. was really an essential component for all of our educators. So the videos on at the elementary level will be maintained, probably for different durations based on the age of the student, but longer than 30 minutes. So when we originally wrote the Memorandum of Understanding, it was actually before the schedules were finalized by those planning teams. And that 30 minutes really was a decision to ensure that every student was checked in on, even if they weren't in class with you that day. And so that component still exists. Every teacher will be checking in with their students for at minimum that 30 minutes, but their cameras will be on so that the students who are in distance learning only, whose families opt for that, or who are on their off day will also have access to the teacher's lessons through the video component. It won't be necessarily required of every student to do that for the duration of their day. There will be some asynchronous lessons that will be built in that's similar to the independent practice that students would have had before we were in distance learning in like a homework type of, kind of configuration. But really, it's been an amazing process that our staff have gone through to determine like what would be great for kids and what would be great for families, and try to meet all of that in the middle without re-rostering the district. So, I think you're going to find, Carolyn, at the elementary level that students are going to be engaged online longer than 30 minutes than on their off day, but it can look a little bit different between TK up through 8th grade.
Thank you for clarifying.
I did have one text from the public, Ted, if we are at that point.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
The question says, will tonight's SUESD 2021 return to in-person presentation slides be available online? If so, where? So you can go to suesd.org and then click on the board tab, and these are all embedded in the board docket. So you will see tonight's board docket, a button for that on there, and these are everything presented tonight is available in that docket. And this person also adds just a comment: I'm feeling optimistic when all staff and students can return to campus. So nice positive note to end on.
Great, thank you. Anything else, I guess, from YouTube or Linda?
Nothing on email.
Nothing on Zoom.
Okay. Wherever it comes from, so, okay, perfect. Safe to say we can move on. All right. Okay, well, let's move on to racial justice and educational equity. And Scott.
So we've had since the last time we talked, we had another meeting of our racial justice task force, group of about over 20 of us that include teachers, parents, classified members, and board members, 2 of which are represented here from the last meeting. And so I'll do a quick overview and invite them to chime in. So a lot of work going on. One of the key things that we're focusing on is called the Cultural Proficiency Continuum. And so this is a way to kind of gauge different reactions to working to be a more racial equity-based district. And so it goes all the way on the spectrum from cultural destructiveness, which would be like an intentional way for the majority culture to hold down another race, all the way up through cultural proficiency, which is really where we're aiming for down the road, and then everything in the middle. As an example, one thing that one of the layers in the middle is called cultural pre-competence. And sometimes would include something like, and not that these are negative things, but like, like a food fair to celebrate a certain ethnicity, but just stopping there, like that checks the box. And that's better than being culturally destructive. Let's say but it's not going in depth enough to really understand different cultures. So that's a framework that we'll use throughout our work and is something that we kind of practice on regularly. Some of the other information that we've talked about at our last meeting, we had a good discussion on the fact that the Black Lives Matter movement was nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. And we had a really meaningful discussion around that and the impact on it, and even talked about how here in our little district, we've had a very meaty discussion about it being on digital marquees and how that should be phrased and what that means to a community member, and how to have the courage to have that out there, but still be open-minded enough to engage in discussion where those teachable moments, so to speak, right? And we looked at a lot of different quotes by different leaders, some by James Baldwin. One that really resonated with a lot of people was by Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And it talks about how leading change often means, not ramrodding your opinion, but bringing people along and into the conversation. And so a lot of looking towards different figures and leaders who have been successful in this work. Let's see, I'm looking at our very thorough notes from our last meeting, and we talked a lot about how to make sure that this work never sits in isolation, which, thinking back to the original meeting of the Racial Justice Task Force, if I could say that there was one concern, as you kind of go through your hopes and fears for at the beginning, a fear was expressed that this can't be a one-off. This can't be oh, isn't this nice that we had a couple meetings and now we're racially just, or we have racial equity, that this work had to be deep. And so, as a part of that, continuing that goal of making sure that this isn't done in any kind of superficial way, we talked about how we would make sure that this work proliferated across the district, and that while we're having meetings with our administrative team and in the Racial Justice Task Force and with our Board of Trustees and governance team, that it had to go beyond that too. So we talked about strategies of, sharing at staff and union meetings, listening harder through discomfort. We talked about sharing certain points that could be offered to our principals to put in their weekly newsletters, continuing to use our local paper as an opportunity to publish articles around equity. And so really tried to get into some specific strategies to make sure that this work goes beyond our meetings. Finally, probably the most important and tangible work that we have led up to and started is our subcommittees. And at this point, we kind of actually, as board members and a superintendent, we kind of got pulled out so that these groups could work on their own and really be able to give us the consensus and opinions that come out of those. And so the groups focus around staffing and curriculum and instruction, just to name a couple of the areas that, gosh, I don't have that down. I think there were 3 or 4 different subcommittees. But I hope and think that the group is really starting to see, where this leads to in a concrete fashion. And our leaders, of course, Nicole Anderson and Dr. Shelley Holt, really masters at this of not racing to the end product, because again, that can smack of that check the box kind of thinking. But at first, have really put us through the paces of reading important articles and literature and having deep discussions and looking at the continuum of cultural proficiency, so that we kind of have this foundation that when we go into these subcommittees, or when other members of the team go into these subcommittees and start to make a racial equity action plan, that it's based on something beyond just our own personal opinion. It's based on some of the kind of foundational work that has been done in this area. So I think a lot of really meaningful work has gone into that Racial Justice Task Force, and we will continue also at the governance level in future meetings. And our ADCO, I know I've said it before, but I'll say it again. Although we have 2:00 meetings weekly for just 1 hour, our big 2.5-hour meetings once a month have all been dedicated to the subject And we've stuck to that, which is something I hope everybody's very proud of. I know I am, because if there was ever a year where it would be easy to kind of say, oh, we got these, very practical matters and nuts and bolts, then we can't focus on something like this. This would have been the year, and nobody has taken that excuse. The Racial Justice Task Force meets from 5:30 to 7:45. So these are folks that all have families and lives, and they give up their time because this is work that's really important to our community. And I think that really shows to our presenters as well that this is a serious effort in our district. And so, Carolyn and Jen, you were at the last meeting. I'll open it up to you, or of course, any other board member that has a thought or question.
I guess I'll just add, I mean, you covered everything, so, but there was certainly just a lot of meaningful discussions. And I really felt the excitement when people were talking about the subcommittees, and just really kind of feeling like, okay, so now we're going to start talking about specifics. And I thought that was really encouraging. So.
And I am checking to see if Ted, if you're ready for it. I'm not.
I think Jen, you have something to say?
No, it was covered. Everything was covered very well.
Okay. All right, very good. Oh yeah, great, another great presentation. Yeah, let's see if there's anything out there in virtual world.
Nothing from tech.
Nothing from you.
Okay.
Nothing on Zoom.
Very good. Okay. Thank you, Scott. Oh, before you take off. Okay, we're going to move on to our action items. 9A, we're going to consider approval of the 2021 Comprehensive School Safety Plan, Part 1. Scott.
In case you haven't heard me talk enough tonight, let's go into the Comprehensive School Safety Plan. So, as I mentioned during the public hearing, this is an annual requirement of school districts. Our district, again, just to reiterate, we publish one for the district instead of one for each school site. Although, as mentioned in closed session, the board did review the internal components of the Comprehensive School Safety Plan, which is called Part 2. And it's really the inner workings and the kind of things that are pertinent not to the public, but to the school staff for safety and emergency management. This part of the plan, Part 1, is what we'll ask the board to take action on. And it is intended to be, the more public and more broad strategies for creating a safe and positive learning environment at our school. And so it's a long document, but a good chunk of the document is made up of required board policies. And those board policies obviously are not being reviewed in and of themselves tonight, but are just part of this plan. Of course, in future meetings, we can always pull any of the policies to look at, but those policies are just what have to be included in the plan. So what I'm going to do is just take the board through what I consider some highlights. And so I'll refer to, I think it's easier to refer to the docket page number. If not, I'll change course on that. But so I'm going to go straight to page 110 of the docket, which is page 4 of 15 of the plan. And just to express that there was broad participation on this, and it included administrators, parents, classified employees, law enforcement representatives, and then district administrators in addition to site administrators. The classified employees generally do, and not generally, they do include the campus supervisors, who are obviously, their focus of their job is obviously on school safety and positive environment. So we had a good team that reviewed it and met and was able to offer any input into the plan. I will now refer to page 112 of the docket, page 6 of the plan. And this is the data point. These are the data points that are included as a way to, besides the qualitative expression of our safety plan, these are the quantitative pieces. And it's a little weird this year because obviously last year we closed before the end of the school year, or went to distance learning, I should say. And this year we haven't been on campus. So, but we do look at these three pieces of data. Suspension rates, the very common understanding is that if you have a school with a safe environment and a positive environment, you're not going to have a lot of student suspensions. And then chronic absenteeism. Again, if you have a warm, welcoming environment that students want to go to, you're not going to have as many students being chronically absent with the state's definition of 10%, which is 18 days absent in a typical school year. And then finally, the California Healthy Kids Survey, which is administered every other year in our county and is a way to gauge 5th and 7th graders for us, an in-depth survey that asks them how they feel about school and how safe they feel at school. And so let's start with suspension rates. And I'm just going to say it, I know I've said it before, but this is one of the more disappointing areas that we don't have what we can call, a full data set because of the way the year was kind of cut off. But we were on track. And we weren't on track because, we crossed our fingers and it was a good year. As they often say, hope is not a strategy. The reason those suspensions went down is because all the work that our school staff did to support students and kind of change the outlook on suspension. A lot of that work came through efforts like PBIS, positive behavior intervention, and really changing the mindset is, and asking the simple but profound question is, does sending a student off campus change their behavior? And for all but the most serious offenses where we don't have a choice, really trying to change the way that we seek to correct student behavior, and that takes a lot of work, and it's something we should be really proud of. I think another strategy and effort that went into decreasing student suspensions was all of our work around SEL and social emotional learning, the ruler system, having different ways, such as the blueprint, to work with students who maybe are having problems with each other to resolve it in a way that, produce some resolution rather than just sending a student away for a couple of days and having nothing resolved. And so all of that, in my opinion, again, through strategy, not through hope, decreased our suspension rate. We suspended 4 students last year. And in a typical year, we had been suspending somewhere between like 40 and 70. Now, admittedly, it cut off in March. And so when you look at that suspension rate for 2019-20, it does have an asterisk. The state has deemed that it is reliable data, but it's not comparable. And so the only way we can really have any comparison is to the state and county suspension rate. Of course, the district one is lower in comparison to those two. So again, we are on the right track with that. I can say, of course, like with everything else, we have to stay vigilant. We can't let up, but we have the systems in place and we have the mindsets in place to find other ways to correct student behavior in a more positive way than suspension. Chronic absenteeism was also down last year, but again, that data is even less of a full data set, and the fact that again we went off campus for distance learning in March, and at this point and I don't think we will get a county and state data set on that. So of course I want to say that we're heading in the right direction, even though we can't talk about it quite as confidently as what I did with the suspension rates. I do know that it's more of a mindset in the district to regularly track that. And a lot of work goes into making sure that all of our attendance letters that go home to families early are, even the tone of those letters sometimes make a difference, right? Is to like making sure those first couple letters are really outreach and, hey, we noticed that your child was absent this many days, and there's something we can do to support, and a principal is going to call you to talk to you, like having that be the tone of those first few letters, so that we can nip it in the bud, so to speak. So we'll continue our work on that, and I look forward to a year that we have a full year and can have some comparable data to previous years. Finally, the California Healthy Kids Survey. I've said on numerous board meetings in the previous year that for our 7th grade data, it was heading in the wrong direction. The data was on a downward trend, a disappointing trend, and I've tried to be very blunt and honest about that. But the flip side of that is that action was taken, and that especially at the middle school, we had, even though again we only went through March, there was only one student suspended in 1819, and so that wasn't by accident. And we had planned to administer the California Healthy Kids Survey in an off year last year, because we wanted to see if that momentum that had been built, would show itself through that same instrument of the Healthy Kids Survey. Last year, before COVID-19 hit us, the site administration there did do a kind of a dipstick survey, not as in depth as Healthy Kids Survey. That dipstick survey showed a lot of positive trend. You can see from the 5th grade data that on California Healthy Kids Survey that the trend was all positive. And so we are actually, the window's open now, just opened. And so this year we will be having our 5th, 6th, and 7th graders. Usually it's just 5th and 7th. The thinking around the county was that let's get the 6th graders in this year, because they wouldn't have had it last year as 5th graders. And then they would skip next year. They wouldn't have it next year in an off year as 7th graders. And there is talk, because of the nature of the survey, that, and this is beyond our county, and I don't know for sure if this will come to fruition, but there is talk that maybe of phasing out the 5th grade part of this, and that it's more appropriate for middle school and up. And so the thinking is this might be the last chance for the current 6th graders to get in on the action, so to speak. And so we'll be administering to 5th, 6th, and 7th. And after this administration period, it does take a while to compile it, but we'll get full reports that we can look at, and we can look at it in comparison to this data here and tag on another year to see if we're on the right trajectory. I now take the attention to page 114 of the docket, page 8 of the plan. About halfway down, this is where it lists our strategies. And so I'll just go through these and let you know where we are with each one, excuse me. So the first one is to provide internet safety training and resources to students, staff, and parents. This one's really focused on that training about different threats out there from a cyber perspective. We get great support on that from our Capitola PD, and they are working on a date to be able to do another one of those presentations. There have been some things that happen in the community that that have kind of taken up staff time, but I just want you to know that we are working with them to get a date on the calendar. It often proves our time is very very precious, but we will get another date where we can open it up. And I think we all realize maybe one of the positive outcomes of what we've gone through the last year is that these kind of meetings, Zoom, sometimes are a great way. I think we will continue to be able to get some of that information out to parents in this setting, and probably get a lot of parents that wouldn't have had the time to come in person, right? So we'll get that out there. We'll do it in a way that everybody can access in a digital format, but we don't have a date quite on the calendar yet. Our strategy 2 was to refine and improve our use of restorative practices. I mentioned this as one of the ways that we were able to target, different ways to correct student behavior. And I think this is something, again, you never rest on your laurels and say, oh, we got this. It's something that we're well engaged in. In fact, the county office is starting, gosh, I just forgot the term, something of practice, system of practice. I forgot exactly what it's called.
Community of practice.
Community of practice. Thank you, Jen. I was hoping you would pop in. And so many of us have signed up to be a part of that so that we can learn even more and maybe share some of our successes as well at the county level. Strategy 3 is to keep current with Code Red drills and training. Of course, we haven't had the opportunity to be in person for a while, but these drills are scheduled, and the track that everybody has to take with this is just that when we do come back more and more in person, then we will do the drills that are on the calendar. Obviously, it's in a prorated format. We're not going to be able to do as many drills as we would have in a typical year. Strategy 4 is to do that threat assessment training and to make sure all administrative staff is aware of the protocol and the process for handling threats. And I would say that this has become just a part of our culture now. Our administrators, you know, it's that sense of, you know, not calm, because if you get one of these serious threats, it certainly throws you, but you know what to do. You don't go and think, okay, what do I do now? We know how to address whether is this a transient threat or a substantive threat, and then how to act immediately. Strategy 5 is to provide an annual incident command center training to our staff, and we just finished this up earlier this week. We did 2 parts of it. This is really kind of that emergency management plan that the board looked at in closed session, and making sure that we constantly get better at you know, training ourselves and preparing ourselves for the case of a big emergency where you have to have multiple agencies come in, and how to coordinate that. Strategy 6 is to annually update each school's anti-bullying plan. This is something that I hope everybody's very proud of. This is one of those things that's not a requirement. The state does not make us submit an anti-bullying plan. The county doesn't ask for an anti-bullying plan. This is something we do on our own accord because we think it's the right thing to have a concise 1-page document that says bullying is something that we don't want to happen at our schools. And these are some strategies that we take to be proactive about that. You can find those at the very back of the plan at the end of the appendixes. And strategy 7 is to consider adding security cameras, vape detectors, and additional perimeter fencing. This is something that's always an ongoing conversation. You'll hear about it a little bit later tonight as kind of a first blush on a couple of those items. One of the things that that I feel again kind of proud of for our district is that we went back and looked at a presentation from May of 2018, and at that point, you know, New Brighton had been without a school counselor for about a decade, and it was at that time with a lot of other incidents happening across the country. You know, of kind of a dire nature on school campuses. We took a hard look and had a courageous conversation with the whole community about, you know, what kind of safety measures should be in place. How can you best be proactive about those kind of incidents, all with limited fiscal resources. And we did a survey of both staff and parents, and it included all those, you know, hard security kind of things, and also included those internal ways, such as a school counselor. And we put it out to, you know, input and consensus, and it came back resounding that the best way we believe is to start from the inside out. And that's when we made the decision to add the school counselor at New Brighton, which that position has been a tremendous asset to the school. And now, and then at that point, also in the survey, you know, coming in after a school counselor was, yeah, but we probably need to beef up some of these hard and fast items too, such as a little bit more perimeter fencing, which was accomplished really well. For example, at New Brighton, especially where there's a lot of different entry points. So Michelle was very mindful about, like, even if that wasn't necessarily a project into itself, she was very mindful about when opportunities arose during the bond projects to, you know, take little chances to be able to beef up the perimeter fencing there and have fewer points of entry. And then, of course, tonight we'll talk about some of those other hard and fast items. So that's a long plan, but those are the highlights, and open it up now to board discussion.
All right, it's an action item. So any questions, clarifying questions from the board? Sorry, yeah, go ahead, Phil. Sorry.
So what's the protocol for calling a code red? Can any staff person call a code red?
Yeah, any staff member can. And there's the county sheriff's office comes out and does a rotation of those specific code red trainings to each school, and they talk about that. Yeah, typically it would come from the principal, but that any staff could, if they, you know, in that see something, say something kind of mindset, they could, yes.
Okay. Okay. If there are no other clarifying questions or comments, is there anything from the public?
Nothing on text.
Thing on email.
Nothing on Zoom.
Okay, well then, with that, I'll call for a motion to consider approval of 2021 Comprehensive School Safety Plan, Part 1.
I'll make the motion to approve. Carolyn?
Carolyn first, second.
I'll second. Amanda.
Amanda, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Okay. Okay, let's move on to 9B. This is a second reading for policy 3530, risk management insurance. Michelle.
Good evening, everyone.
Hello.
I guess the last board meeting I brought to you the updated board policy. There was no additional changes made at that time. Just one thing that I learned, I need to give the board an annual update on our JPA and our insurance policy. So I will make sure a future board meeting agenda item gets put on the calendar. So with that, leave it to the board to approve the update.
Okay, any further questions or comments from the board? If not, public?
Nothing on email?
Nothing on Zoom.
Okay, I'll call for a motion to approve board policy 3530, risk management insurance. Is there a motion?
I'll make the
I
motion.
moved.
Oh,
I second.
Okay, Carolyn first, Phil second. All in favor?
aye.
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 Any opposed? No. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. 9C, consider adopting the 21-22 school year calendar. Jessica.
Oh, Well, hello, everyone again.
Hello.
This is just a second. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
You can hear me. Okay, good. This is just a second reading and action. It's recommended that the school board adopt the 21-22 calendars. There are a number of calendars that were presented last board meeting. All of the corrections and edits have been made. And so at this time, we're hopeful that the board will see their way to approving the new calendars.
You're muted, Ted.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions from the board? If none, call anything out there in the public.
Nothing on text.
Nothing on email.
Nothing on Zoom.
Very good. All right, I'll call for a motion to consider adopting the 21-22 school year calendar. Is there a motion on the floor? Ken first?
Oh. I'll second, and then somebody else second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None. Okay. 9D, let's consider approval of the California School Boards Association, CSBA, Delegate Assembly Representative for Subregion 9A. Scott.
Well, I'll make this short and sweet. We know what good work CSBA does. We know how important to that good work that the Delegate Assembly is. We know that our own Phil Rodriguez has represented our subregion 9A in that work through a series of peculiar people either walking away from positions or the way that the nominations went on a runoff. It seems like if it seems like we did this very recently, it's because we did, but it was in that runoff kind of format. And so that seat is up again, and the board may consider representing or nominating someone to the Delegate Assembly for Subregion 9A. And I see some guy named Phil Rodriguez is on the ballot.
Actually, this is this is a vote that is on the ballot, not a nomination, right?
Yes, excuse me. Yes, correct.
Okay, so, in other words, do we want to check this box next to this guy named Phil Rodriguez?
You got it.
Okay, so is there, any comments or questions from the board? None? Anything from the public?
Nothing on text.
Nothing on email.
Nothing on Zoom.
Okay, very good. Okay, well, is there a motion on the floor to vote for Phil Rodriguez, or vote for Phil Rodriguez?
I'll make the motion to vote for Phil Rodriguez.
I'm sorry, okay, great. All right. Is there a second?
I'm seconding.
All right, perfect. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you.
All
Thank you.
right, and I assume none opposed too. Okay, congratulations, Phil. You got our vote. You're supposed to go. All right, 9E, let's consider approval proposal for purchase and installation of surveillance cameras at New Brighton Middle School. And this goes to Michelle.
Good evening again, everyone. The next two agenda items are mine. They're intertwined, but separately, two separate agenda items. So that if the board has any questions regarding a particular item, we can address them separately. The first item is for surveillance cameras at New Brighton. As Scott had said earlier, back in 2018, when we did a community survey regarding safety within the district, the three top items were counselors, cameras, and fencing. So fencing has been addressed, the counselor has been addressed, and now we're looking at addressing cameras as our last component of those three components. I would like to say, ironically enough, this process began just over a year ago with this company and our process of where we would have the cameras placed. These are external cameras across the campus, and there is a fair amount of cameras, and because of that, the reason for that is because as we did our walkthrough about camera placement, New Brighton is such a unique school with the vistas being so long between the wings that one camera on one end would not be of use at a camera at another end. So you have to do placement at both ends in order to get a substantial view that would be worth anything to put the camera there in the first place. So that's why you see the number of cameras in there, because of the design of the site and how large it is. As I said, these are all external cameras. We started the process over a year ago. This board meeting 1 year ago, I was about to bring this to you, this exact contract. And when everything in the world changed, we put this whole process on hold and dealt with a few other things in between. And then now we've come full circle, and I wanted to go ahead and continue with the process so that we can start working on this project in the spring. One thing I would like to add on the cameras, we have demoed them. George is on if anyone has any technical questions, because that I cannot answer for you. I'm not going to lie. They are Verdec cameras. They are the ones that are most used and the ones that are highly recommended. And Verkada, sorry, thank you, George. Verkada. I'm sorry. And the last component of that is it's one part of it is the installation, one part of it is the hardware. We also have roughly a $35,000 grant within our property and liability JPA that we can put towards the purchase of this for this exact reason. And one of the other reasons over the last year specifically, we have had an uptick in vandalism at New Brighton. We've had some light poles that were taken down. We've had a few broken windows and some graffiti. So these are just small items, but just the presence of cameras on the external part of the buildings helps deter anyone from any mischief out there. And so with that, I will open it up to any questions.
Are there any questions from the board?
Sure, I have some. I think this was raised before, but I just want to confirm. These are video only and would not be recording sound. Is that
Correct. Yes, and those are in the purview of our board policy and common practice.
Thank you. Would they still be in operation during school hours when students are on campus?
Yes, they would be running 24 hours, 7 days a week.
And then would you just remind us of how it is the footage can be viewed? Who would have access to that?
The technical component, I'm hoping George can answer as far as which, who could view it, the district would have full control over that. And in all likelihood, it would be limited to Craig, Christina, the principal, vice principal, and Scott possibly, but very, very minimal access to the footage.
As far as accessing it, it's just a website that they log into, hosted by Verkada. We would set up their accounts. They'd log in and be able to access it anywhere they need to, even offsite.
Thank you.
Bill.
Is there an impact to the caretaker?
Specifically, no. The cameras, the placement of the cameras would not be in view of his area because they're on the other side of the district office building. There is one camera placement that will overlook that back parking lot with the buses. But other than that, there's no direct impact to the caretaker, no, nor would the caretaker have access to any of the footage.
Are you thinking of taking place of the caretaker?
Right, yeah, so
No.
it's redundant?
Well, that's not specifically a conversation we've had, but it wouldn't be that it would be in replacement of, it would be in addition to. We do get updates every weekend from the caretaker regarding activity around campus. And he does go out and do daily and nightly patrols of the campus. And so the presence alone of him there does make a big difference. Just cameras alone make a difference, but the two together are what, really makes a difference.
To reduce vandalism, will there be signs saying that there are cameras?
As part of the process and part of our board policy, we do have to notify the community at the time that the cameras are actually being installed and that will be up. All cameras will be in plain view of the public. No camera is obscured in any way. They're the round balls. I'm sorry, George probably knows a more technical term for it, that you see stuck to the side of the wall. So they're very plainly. Then we put signage up throughout the campus that says that, surveillance cameras are, on campus, and again, communication with the public.
I call them a dome.
Okay. I think we covered it. Is there any comments, questions from the public?
Nothing on text.
Nothing on email.
Nothing on Zoom.
Okay. Well, is there a motion to approve the proposal to purchase and installation of surveillance cameras at New Brighton Middle School? Is there a motion?
Okay, I will make the motion.
There we go. I was thinking I said something wrong there. Okay,
I'll
Amanda
second.
first, Carolyn second. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? None. Okay, Michelle, let's move on to 9F, and that's consider approval proposal for the purchase installation of Verkada that's how you pronounce it, right? Environment sensors.
Verkada, yeah.
Okay, New Brighton Middle School.
Yes, so the second component to this is the environmental sensors. They are what are commonly referred to as vape sensors, but in this particular case, these sensors are environmental sensors. They are the same a company that produces the cameras. So they would be doing the installation at the same time that they would be for all the cabling and all the additional work. This also, again, falls into what Scott had mentioned earlier as strategy number 7 under campus security and the discussion that we've had over the last 2 years regarding vaping on campus. The environmental sensors would be placed in a variety of restrooms throughout the campus. Both the principal and the vice principal have done walkthroughs and given their sign off on the placement of both, I should say, the cameras and of the sensors. And just a little background on the sensors. Not only do they detect vape or tobacco, there are also air quality control sensors. They are noise level monitoring as well. And so part of what that they can do is you can set their decibel level at a certain level. So if voices are raised within the vicinity of an area, it sets off an alarm basically to the principal, notifying them that there's a loud noise within the area because it set the decibels off. And it also monitors the quality of the air within the area and the particulate detection. So it has a variety of uses.
And the temperature.
That's true, and the temperature. So
interesting.
They've come a long way, I have to say. Bill.
So because of the sound monitoring, would you install these near the access points?
We could. Right now, the main purpose of them is for the tobacco and vape detection. So they are specifically this was specifically designated for all of our restroom areas. But if you look them up, because I was doing some research on them, a lot of companies and a lot of businesses are using them in multiple access points, not just in restroom areas.
So I didn't ask this on the camera one, but can I ask it now? And do the cameras have IR? Infrared.
Oh.
Yeah, I know. I was trying to remember if they had IR. I'll have to look that up for you real quick.
You don't have to answer now.
Okay. I might have an answer in a minute.
Okay, that's a good question. Any other schools in our district have the system, the vapor detection?
I know for sure Santa Cruz City Schools has installed them. That's the only one I know for certain.
Same company? Or brand, or I guess it would be a brand, right?
The brand, no, because I believe we would be the first in this county to have them, the environmental sensor component, not the cameras. The cameras are very common.
Well, right, yeah.
The
sensors are a new product from them.
Okay.
The company in and of themselves are local, and they were recommended to us by SLV because they did use them for their installation.
And we're talking about the vapor sensor, right?
The cameras.
Okay, we're back on cameras. Okay.
Yeah, sorry. It's the same company that's doing both, and so that it kind of goes hand in hand.
I see. Okay. But as far as the vapor sensors go, other schools in the district have that, or we're the first?
No, Santa Cruz City Schools has them installed on campus. Yes.
And
in the county, yes, but not there's no other schools in the district that have it, but in the county, right? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I did see that there are IR sensors for night mode for the cameras.
Awesome. There you go.
Okay.
I'll speak because I know we've mentioned this before in board meetings, although I don't know if we've mentioned it recently, that as a board we read the docket thoroughly and we ask a lot of questions ahead of time as to try to create, efficient meetings such as this one. And what I mentioned and had some questions about, and Michelle, I really appreciate your presentation. And I realized that the cameras were definitely kind of an ask. And I remember discussing the vape sensors in the past with our community. So am I understanding this correctly, that the last time we gauged our community's feelings about this, was that 2018?
That was the last time we did it formally.
Formally for the cameras, but the vape sensors and detecting have been part of our comprehensive school safety plan for the last few years.
Right. Okay. And I trust and believe in our team's understanding of what our community wants. Personally, I don't feel like a real strong need for these, and have some reservations, but I also know that it has come up in our conversations, and it's been a part of it. So thank you for doing the research and all of the hard work in getting the contracts ready, and this is what our community wants. Thanks.
I can always provide additional information if about them or what additionally what they do.
I know what they do. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I guess I would just add in too, if it's okay, that, this is definitely one of those areas that sometimes it's a strong nerve with folks, and there's never going to be 100% agreement. So, I don't want to give a false front that, that we think everybody in the community believes this is the way to go. But I think the vandalism is one of the tipping points that makes it kind of a little bit, lean in that direction where it's a need. That's kind of going back to the camera, sorry. And for the vape detectors, there's certainly, I believe one of the comments in the questions earlier before the board meeting was the kids find a way to work around whatever we put in place. And that is probably true. Nothing is foolproof. I liken it to hackers, that folks on the computer security end are always trying to stay one step ahead of, some really smart hackers. And that's just kind of the nature of this thing. So, but not to be overly simplistic, I think it falls into the it's better than nothing category. At least it, definitely shows the community we're trying to make our best effort to protect students' health. But both of these items are, I know are sensitive items.
Right.
I guess the question would be, would it be reasonable if we're not sure about the vape sensors to put it on a back burner? It just seems like at this time when people are worried about other issues and maybe wondering why we're not spending money on other things, and kids are not in the school yet, the perception is that, well, perhaps maybe it'll be important in the future, but not necessarily right this in this moment. I don't know, maybe just the perception, perhaps.
If I could address the cost of it in just one sense, this is coming from our capital facilities fund, so it wouldn't be coming from our general fund or impact our general fund in any way. They're the funds that are designated for projects like these. Secondarily, obviously, whatever the board decides tonight is what the district will move forward with, but having one company do both projects at the same time is beneficial for the district to complete the project as a whole. And so kind of as an added bonus on that.
And I would also just add that, having fewer students on campus, regardless of what phase of in-person learning we are in, is a little bit of an advantage to doing some of the installation and such. So in that sense, it's kind of an advantageous time.
And was this a request from the principal and vice principal as well, the vape detection?
That's a really good question, Ted. I don't know if I can honestly say a request. Vaping, has been an issue at the middle school for several years now, and we've been talking about it for several years. And vape detectors were really not a thing, before a few years ago, as when they kind of came in. And hence, when city schools did this a few years ago, it was very new. We talked about it then, and that's what kind of started our conversation, and then becoming part of the comprehensive school safety plan under campus security. It all kind of rolled into each other. The principal and vice principal are definitely on board with the placement of them as a deterrent.
Right. But also, there's other benefits to the sensors, as well as it's just not vaping, but also air quality, correct?
Correct.
And then and then also the sound. Is this
Correct.
detects the sound? So broken glass. at the school. So it actually has other benefits. So we don't really want to look, I mean, one of the benefits is vaping, but then there's also other security benefits as well too.
I just wanted to point out that these do tie into the camera system as well.
Mhm.
So if you get an alert on one of the sensors, it'll show you what camera it's by. And so it ties together, another added benefit.
Could you explain that a little more? I guess I'm not understanding.
It's they're all made by Verkada, so they all are in the same login. You'll have access to the same information, and I believe if you get a flag from a certain sensor, you can tie it to a camera to see who came in or left that bathroom, who recently came in. So you could see the students coming by the bathroom over there. It wouldn't look into the bathroom, obviously, but you could see the area.
I had a text from Principal Broadhurst saying that while they didn't request them, they're definitely in favor of the vape detectors.
Sorry, my headphone died.
All right, thank you. That's good to hear.
And
Phil.
just thinking back to the when we were in session, there was a period of time there where vaping was really a scourge. And I just say that, as administrators, you often felt flat-footed on what you could do about it because obviously, it's not like you can barge into bathrooms at that level. And just having something that you feel like you're being proactive about is something that I think will give some confidence to the staff and trying to limit that activity at the school. Sorry, Phil, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, I agree with Michelle about it being a deterrent. So right now, enforcement rests on staff, and it's not something that's the highest priority to bust vapors. Plus, we don't know what the scope of the problem is, and perhaps we can find out what the scope is once we start seeing these reports. But I think deterrence is the biggest thing,
And I think I just do want to go back to clarify what George had said regarding the sensors in and of themselves. If, a bathroom in the 40 wing sensor goes off, the administration would be notified of that. And then it would notify them that the 40 wing bathroom sensor went off. The closest camera to that area is located on the south wall of the adjacent building. If you wanted to, look at and a lot of that I don't think would necessarily become, which I shouldn't say that, could or could not become of the actual vaping. But again, with the noise decibel level, if the sensors are going off because of loud noises in a particular area, to have camera footage of comings and goings would be, again, yet another deterrent.
So just to clarify, the sensor goes off if someone's vaping or if there's noise, and you would be able to know why it went off, correct? It would be a different mechanism or a different signal. So you wouldn't.
Yeah, you would get an alert, and it would tell you specifically
what it is. Okay.
Yeah, what level is being exceeded.
Or possibly all of them in a worst case scenario with a bad environment because of the vaping and dropping something. It could all alarm bells could go off at once.
Exactly.
Technology, sorry, it's so late. I had to make a joke, sorry. Very serious.
There you go. Run.
I know we put the weighty stuff at the end, and you guys really made me put my thinking brain on.
I'll just hop in. It isn't exactly a question though, right? It's weighty because I think we're thinking about kids and privacy and freedoms, right? There's a balance there. We all want the opportunity to go to the bathroom without feeling like we're being eavesdropped upon, right? Obviously, we don't want cameras in bathrooms. That's not happening. I also see and have seen as a parent of kids in high school, the scourge, of vaping. It is awful. It is, it's out there. It's happening more than I ever would have believed before my kids hit that age. And it is so easy to hide these devices. I mean, they're just they're in the sleeve, they're, right, there's not the same kind of smell as there is with cigarette smoke. So the public health benefits and the general, right, the commitment to the health of our students is really paramount. So I guess my comment I'm trying to get at is how important it will be to provide education to kids and families about what we're doing and why, right? The why behind all of it, that it's not something that's taken lightly and just done on a whim. There's a reason behind it. And just, again, if something's truly going to be a preventative measure, then we're letting people know that it's there. That's all I got to say.
If I could just add on to that, Amanda, I really would like to express to the board, Scott and I did talk about this, and these contracts are well under the limit to which, we have the capacity in business to approve, and they in a sense are operational, but they've been such a large topic of conversation over the last few years and part of our safety plan and community input. We just felt very strongly that for the opportunity for the board to weigh in on both items separately, and if the public, had any. So just kind of to your point, like I'm in agreement with you. I felt very strongly that it needed to be done with transparency and in the open, because the reason for us doing this is for the betterment of the site.
Thank you.
Just being proactive with our tobacco-free schools policies as well, too, falls under. If there is no more from the board, anything from the public?
Nothing on text.
Nothing on email.
Nothing on Zoom.
Okay, all righty. Is there a motion on the floor to consider approval of the proposed purchase and installation of Verkada environmental sensors?
I move.
Bill first. Second.
I'll second. Amanda.
Amanda seconds. Okay, all in favor? Aye.
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 Any
Aye.
opposed? None. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, gang. So now we're on to correspondence. Do we have any correspondence to submit? If
Linda
not-
shaking her head no.
Okay, I don't think so. Any future agenda items? Okay. Now we are going to go into closed session, so I can adjourn the open meeting, correct? And then we'll convene into closed session again. So is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Jen.
Okay, Jen first.
I'll second.
Carolyn second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Okay, so let's reconvene into our closed session, and then I am going to exit out of here, and let's see if it still works, because I had there was a timestamp on it too, so hopefully I could get back into it. So I'm going to leave here.
Zoom doesn't really limit you by the time you put. I think you're okay.
Okay, all right, so I'll just go back to the agenda. Okay. Oh, bye.
Thank you,
Bye,
everybody.
everyone. Thank you, George. Thank you, Linda.
Bye. Yeah, thank you, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.